Admiral Tae-woo Park stood in the ruins of what was once the most beautiful city humanity had ever built among the stars. New Seoul had been home to 2.3 million people. Now it was nothing but ash and broken dreams. The sky above him still glowed orange from the fires that refused to die. Smoke filled his lungs with every breath, but he did not move. He could not move. In his hands, he held a small doll. It was burned on one side. Its hair melted into a hard black mass. This doll had belonged to his daughter, Soo Min. She was 8 years old. She had loved dancing and singing old Korean folk songs. She had called him every week from New Seoul, always asking when he would visit. He had always said, "Soon." Now soon would never come. Around him, rescue workers pulled bodies from the rubble. Most of them were too small. The Dominion Alliance had not cared that this was a civilian colony. They had not cared that there were schools and hospitals and playgrounds. Commander David Stone had given the order to fire, and his fleet had turned New Seoul into a graveyard. The official reason was that New Seoul was hiding enemy fighters. Everyone knew this was a lie. New Seoul sat on top of a hyperspace lane that the Dominion wanted to control. The 2.3 million people who lived there were simply in the way. Tae-woo closed his eyes and remembered the last thing his daughter had said to him. "I love you, Appa. Come visit soon. Okay?" He had smiled and promised he would. 3 days later, she was dead. A young officer approached him carefully. "Admiral, the Council is waiting for you on Earth. They need you to return immediately." Tae-woo opened his eyes. Something had changed in them. The warmth that his crew had always known was gone. In its place was something cold and empty, like the space between stars. "Prepare my ship," he said quietly. The journey back to Earth took 6 hours. Tae-woo spent every minute of it in silence, staring at the burned doll in his hands. When he finally arrived at the United Council building, he found the most powerful leaders of humanity waiting for him in a dark room. Their faces were pale. Some had been crying. Many had lost family members on New Seoul as well. Council leader James Park, no relation to the Admiral, spoke first. "For 300 years, we have played by the galaxy's rules. We have been peaceful. We have been patient. We have answered every insult with diplomacy, and every attack with words." He paused, his voice breaking. "And this is what we received in return. The murder of our children." The room was silent. Everyone knew what was being discussed. Everyone knew what choice lay before them. An elderly woman stood up. Her name was Dr. Hana Cho, and she was the chief scientist of Earth's most classified research program. She had white hair and tired eyes, but her voice was steady as she spoke. 300 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, we discovered something about ourselves. We discovered that we were capable of terrible things. Our history proved it. World wars, nuclear weapons, genocides. We had nearly destroyed ourselves many times. She walked to the center of the room. So when we joined the Galactic Concordat, we made a choice. We chose peace. We chose to hide what we could truly do. We developed weapons and strategies that we swore we would never use. We called this collection Protocol Chaos. She pressed a button, and holographic images filled the room. The council members watched in stunned silence as they saw weapons that seemed impossible. Ships that could appear and disappear at will. Viruses that could take control of entire fleets. Bombs that created tiny black holes. Soldiers trained to become ghosts. We created these hoping we would never need them, Hannah said quietly. We prayed that the galaxy would leave us alone if we were kind and peaceful. But we always knew this day might come. We always prepared for the worst. Council leader James Park turned to face the room. "The question before us is simple. Do we seek justice through the galactic courts, which the Dominion controls? Or do we show the universe what happens when you murder human children?" The vote was unanimous. Every hand rose in favor of war. Admiral Tae-woo was given supreme command of all human military forces. He stood before the council and spoke for the first time since arriving. The Dominion believes we are weak. They believe we chose peace because we could not fight. They are wrong. We chose peace because we knew what we would become if we ever started fighting. They have made their choice. Now they will face ours." He turned to Colonel Sung-Ho Lee, a man with scars on his face and shadows in his eyes. Sung-Ho led a unit that officially did not exist. They were called the Reapers, and they were the most dangerous soldiers humanity had ever created. "Wake them," Tae-woo ordered. "Wake them all." Far across the galaxy, on the throne world of the Dominion Alliance, Overlord Victor Thorne received news that the humans were mobilizing for war. He laughed so hard that he nearly fell from his chair. The humans? Going to war? He wiped tears of amusement from his eyes. "This will be entertaining. We will crush them in a week." General Marcus Vale did not share his leader's confidence. He had spent years studying human history. He had read about their world wars, their atomic bombs, their endless capacity for violence. He had seen what they did to each other before they even reached the stars. "My lord, I advise caution," Marcus said carefully. "These creatures nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They understand destruction in ways we cannot imagine. Perhaps we should consider—" "Consider what?" Thorne interrupted. "They are primitives. They have no real fleet, no advanced weapons. They have spent 300 years being peaceful and weak. There is nothing to fear." Ambassador Elena Cross stepped forward. "Perhaps I should open diplomatic channels. We could negotiate a settlement before this goes too far." "There will be no negotiations," Thorne declared. "We will teach these humans their place in the galaxy. Prepare the fleet for a quick victory." Marcus Vale said nothing more. But as he left the throne room, he felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. It was fear. Deep, cold fear. He had seen the look in human eyes when they were angry. He had studied what they called total war. And he knew, with terrible certainty, that the Dominion had just made the worst mistake in its history. The universe was about to learn why humanity had chosen peace for so long. It was never because they could not fight. It was because they knew exactly what they became when they did. And now, finally, they were going to show everyone. The Dominion expected a direct attack. They positioned their massive war fleet along the border, waiting for human ships to appear on their sensors. They waited for a battle they understood. A war they knew how to fight. They waited for 3 days after declaring their readiness. Nothing came. Then, on the first day of humanity's response, every screen on every Dominion world went dark at the same moment. There was no warning, no signal, no explanation. Just darkness. And then the footage began. Captain Yuna Kim watched from her stealth carrier, the Silent Fury, as her team's work spread across Dominion space. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped calculating. Her ship had slipped past every detection system the Dominion had built. They had not even known she was there. The footage showed New Seoul burning. It showed buildings collapsing on families trying to escape. It showed children running through streets filled with fire. It showed everything the Dominion had tried to hide from the galaxy. And then came the screaming. The audio had been recovered from emergency communication channels. Mothers calling for their children. Children crying for help that never came. The sounds of a civilization dying in flames. After 10 minutes of this, a new image appeared on every screen. It was the face of Admiral Tae-woo Park. His eyes were empty of all emotion. His voice was cold like winter ice. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of. Watch carefully. You have 6 days to surrender unconditionally. After 6 days, there will be nothing left to surrender." The message ended. The regular broadcasts returned. But across the Dominion, panic had already begun. On the throne world, Overlord Victor Thorne screamed at his generals. "How did they get into our networks? How is this possible?" No one had an answer. The humans had done something that should have been impossible. They had hacked every communication system in Dominion space at the same time. The Dominion's best engineers could not understand how. What they did not know was that humanity had invented the base code for those systems. 300 years ago, when the Dominion was still young, human programmers had sold them the technology. Hidden deep in that code were doors that only humans could open. The Dominion had been using human-made systems to protect themselves from humans, and now they were paying the price. General Marcus Vale watched the chaos spreading through military command. Officers argued with each other. Communications were jammed with the same footage from New Sol. Playing on loop, fear was spreading faster than any weapon could. "They are not attacking our ships," Marcus said quietly to himself. "They are attacking our minds." On the second day, the humans finally showed their fleet, but they did not attack the border defenses. They appeared in places no one expected, struck targets no one thought to protect, and vanished before anyone could respond. Lieutenant Minho Baek led a squadron of 12 fighters deep into Dominion space. He was young, only 24 years old. 6 months ago, he had been on leave, visiting his family on New Sol. He had stepped out to buy his mother flowers for her birthday. When the bombs fell, he was 3 blocks away from his home. Close enough to see his entire neighborhood disappear in fire. Far enough to survive. He had not spoken about that day since. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother's face in his dreams. She had been calling his name when she died. He had heard her voice cut off mid-word. Now Minho flew his fighter like a ghost through enemy territory. The new gravity drives let his squadron appear and disappear at will. They struck a fuel station near a Dominion military base. They did not destroy it, they simply disabled it, shutting down the power systems and leaving it dark and useless. Then they vanished before the enemy could react. Across Dominion space, the same thing happened 100 times. Supply depots went silent. Communication relays stopped working. Fuel lines were cut. Nothing was destroyed. Everything was disabled. "They are isolating us," General Marcus Vale realized with growing horror. "They are cutting off our armies from our supplies. They are not trying to destroy us quickly, they are trying to make us watch ourselves fall apart slowly." But the worst was yet to come. Commander David Stone was the man who had ordered the attack on New Sol. He was proud of what he had done. He believed the humans were insects, worthy only of being crushed. That night, he retired to his private quarters on the Dominion flagship, confident that the war would be over soon. He locked his door with 3 separate security systems. He checked his windows, which were sealed with military-grade armor. He was in the most protected room, on the most protected ship in the Dominion fleet. He went to sleep without fear. When his servants came to wake him the next morning, they found the door still locked. The windows were still sealed. The security systems showed no signs of entry. David Stone was dead in his bed. There were no wounds on his body. No signs of poison. No evidence of any weapon. His heart had simply stopped. But on his chest, someone had placed a small note written in Korean. The translation spread through the fleet within hours. It said, "First of many." Colonel Sung-Ho Lee received confirmation of the kill from one of his reapers. He nodded once and crossed Stone's name off a list. There were many more names below it. The reapers were already inside Dominion territory. They had been there since before the war began. They moved like shadows, unseen and unheard. They did not wear uniforms. They carried no weapons that could be traced. They killed without leaving evidence. They were humanity's darkest secret. Soldiers trained since childhood to become perfect assassins. They could enter any building, bypass any security, eliminate any target, and they were very, very angry about New Sol. Overlord Thorne ordered a complete lockdown of all military facilities. He surrounded himself with guards day and night. He trusted no one. Suspected everyone. Paranoia spread through the Dominion leadership like a disease. Captain Yuna Kim monitored the chaos from her hidden position. She reported to Admiral Tae Woo that Phase 1 was complete. Their fleet is in confusion. Their leaders are terrified. Their people are questioning everything. They are ready for Phase 2. Their fleet is in confusion. 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 Admiral Taewoo looked at the burned doll that he kept on his desk. 2 days had passed. 4 remained. Begin the next phase, he ordered. Show them what we have been hiding. The first 2 days had been about fear. The next 2 days would be about power. The Dominion had thought they understood war. They were about to learn that they understood nothing. Humanity was just getting started. On the 3rd day, Dr. Hana Cho sat alone in her laboratory on Earth, watching data streams from across the galaxy. Her hands were shaking. They had not stopped shaking since the war began. She had spent 40 years of her life developing weapons she hoped would never be used. Now she was watching them tear an empire apart. "Forgive me," she whispered to no one. Then she pressed the button that activated the second phase of Protocol Chaos. The Dominion's greatest strength had always been their fleet. They had thousands of warships, each one massive and powerful. No other species in the galaxy could match their numbers. They believed this made them unbeatable. Humanity's answer to this was called the Cascade Virus. Hana had designed it herself, working in secret for 2 decades. It did not destroy ships. It did something far worse. It took control of them. The virus spread through the Dominion fleet like a whisper. It traveled through communication channels, hiding inside routine messages. It infected 1 ship, then 10, then 100. By the time anyone noticed something was wrong, it was already too late. The first sign of trouble came when a Dominion battleship suddenly turned its weapons on the ship beside it. The crew screamed in confusion as their controls stopped responding. Their ship fired again and again, destroying 3 of their own vessels before the fleet commander ordered it destroyed. But destruction did not stop the virus. It had already moved on to other ships. Within 6 hours, the Dominion's home fleet was tearing itself apart. Ships that had served together for decades were now fighting each other. Captains watched helplessly as their own weapons fired without their command. Some crews tried to shut down their ships entirely, but the virus had locked them out of their own systems. Overlord Thorn watched the disaster from his palace. "How is this possible?" he screamed. "We have the most advanced computer security in the galaxy." What he did not know was the truth that Hana had kept secret for 300 years. Humanity had invented the base code that the Dominion's security systems ran on. Every firewall, every protection, every defense, all of it was built on human technology. And hidden deep in that technology were doors that no one had ever found. Until now, General Marcus Vale understood what was happening. "They have been planning this since the beginning," he said quietly. "Since the first day we met them. They sold us our own destruction, and we thanked them for it." Captain Yuna Kim watched the chaos from her position near the Dominion border. She felt no joy in what she was seeing. She remembered a professor she once had, who said that war was never something to celebrate. Even necessary wars, even justified wars. War was always a failure of civilization. But she also remembered the faces of her cousins, who had died on New Sol. She remembered the funeral where there were no bodies to bury, only names carved into empty boxes. She gave the order to deploy the next weapon. The gravity bombs were Hana's most terrible creation. They did not explode like normal bombs. They created something impossible. Tiny black holes that lasted for exactly 30 seconds before collapsing. 30 seconds was enough. The first gravity bomb was dropped on a Dominion military base on one of their core worlds. One moment, the base existed. The next moment, there was only a perfect circle of emptiness where it had been. The buildings, the weapons, the soldiers, everything had been pulled into a point smaller than an atom, and then released as pure energy when the singularity collapsed. The Dominion had no defense against this. They had never even imagined such weapons could exist. On the 4th day, humanity shifted their focus from destroying the Dominion's military to breaking their spirit entirely. Colonel Sung Ho Lee's Reapers had been busy. They did not kill the Dominion's leaders, that would have been too simple. Instead, they kidnapped them. High-ranking generals woke up in strange rooms with no memory of how they got there. They were questioned for hours about military secrets. Then they were returned to their beds, with all memory of the kidnapping erased. But they could not shake the feeling that something had happened. They did not know what they had revealed. They did not know if they could trust their own minds. The paranoia this created was devastating. Dominion High Command could not trust anyone. Generals suspected each other of being traitors. Officers refused to share information, fearing it would somehow reach human ears. The entire military structure began to collapse from within. Lieutenant Minho Baek volunteered for a mission that no one expected him to survive. His fighter flew alone into the heart of Dominion Prime, their capital world. Defense systems locked onto him immediately. 100 weapons prepared to fire, but before they could destroy him, he broadcast his face across every screen on the planet. "My name is Minho Baek," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "6 months ago, I was visiting my family on New Seoul. My mother's name was Jisoo. My father's name was Taemin. My little sister's name was Unji. She was 7 years old. She liked to draw pictures of flowers. Missiles were flying toward his ship now. He had seconds left. Your Commander Stone ordered the bombs that killed them. He burned my sister alive. She was 7 years old. She never hurt anyone. She just liked flowers." His ship exploded. But Minho was no longer inside it. At the last moment, he had ejected, and a Reaper team was already moving to retrieve him. The broadcast had served its purpose. Across Dominion Prime, civilians watched the recording replay again and again. They saw the face of a young man who had lost everything. They heard about a little girl who liked to draw flowers, and many of them began to question whether their leaders had made a terrible mistake. Ambassador Elena Cross finally received permission to contact Earth. Her hands were trembling as she recorded her message. "Please," she begged. "We can negotiate. We can find a peaceful solution. Just tell us what you want." Admiral Tae-woo watched her message on his command ship. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he recorded his response. "You had 300 years to negotiate. You had 300 years to treat us with respect. Instead, you laughed at us. You mocked us. You called us weak and primitive, and when you wanted something we had, you murdered our children to take it." His voice was colder than space. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of. Now you see, you have 2 days left to surrender. After that, there will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy. There will be only silence." He ended the transmission and looked at his daughter's burned doll. 2 days remained. The Dominion was breaking. But the hardest part was still to come. On the 5th day, the Dominion Alliance began to die. It started with the Outer Worlds. Governors who had watched 5 days of destruction decided they had seen enough. One by one, they sent messages to Earth offering surrender. They did not wait for permission from their leaders. They did not ask for terms. They simply gave up. General Marcus Vale stood before a holographic map showing Dominion territory. Red lights marked the worlds that had surrendered. As he watched, another light turned red. Then another. Then 3 more. "It is over," he said quietly. "We have lost." The officers around him said nothing. They all knew he was right. The Dominion had been built on fear and power. When a stronger fear appeared, when a greater power revealed itself, the whole structure collapsed. Worlds that had been conquered by force felt no loyalty to their conquerors. Now they were running to the humans as fast as they could. Marcus made a decision. He gathered a group of officers who shared his views, men and women, who had warned against starting this war. Together, they moved against Overlord Thorn. The coup was quick and bloody. Thorn's personal guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Marcus led the assault himself, his weapon steady in his hands. He had spent his whole life serving the Dominion. Now he was trying to save what was left of it. But when they reached the throne room, they found it empty. Thorn had escaped. The Overlord had fled to his personal fortress world, a planet so heavily defended that it had never been successfully attacked. He took his most loyal soldiers with him, along with enough supplies to last for years. From there, he broadcast a message to all Dominion forces. "I am still your Overlord," he declared. "Any surrender is treason. Any negotiation is betrayal. We will fight to the last soldier." We will never bow to these human animals. Some forces rallied to his call. Most did not. Captain Yuna Kim was given the task of ending Thorn's resistance. She studied the fortress world for several hours, examining its defenses, calculating attack strategies. Then she surprised everyone by doing nothing. "We will not attack," she announced to her fleet commanders. "We will wait." Her ships surrounded the fortress world in a perfect sphere. Nothing could enter. Nothing could leave. Communication signals were blocked. Supply ships were turned away. The planet was cut off from the rest of the universe. Inside the fortress, Thorn's forces began to understand their situation. They had food for months, but not forever. They had weapons, but no one to fight. They were trapped with a leader who refused to accept reality. Days passed. The waiting was hardest on the soldiers. They watched their supplies slowly decrease. They listened to their overlord give angry speeches about human weakness and Dominion strength. They looked at each other and saw the same thought in every face. This is how we die. While the siege continued, Admiral Tae-woo made a journey he had been avoiding. He went to visit Dr. Hana Cho in her laboratory. He found her alone, surrounded by screens showing data from across the galaxy. She had not slept in days. Her eyes were red, her hands still shaking. When she saw him, she did not smile. 40,000 Dominion soldiers died when their ships turned against each other, she said without greeting. 12,000 more died from the gravity bombs. I do not know how many the Reapers have killed. I stopped counting. Tae-woo sat down across from her. You gave us the tools to win. I gave us the tools to destroy. She finally looked at him directly. Are we better than them, Tae-woo? After everything we have done, are we any different from the monsters who burned New Seoul? It was the question that had been haunting him since the war began. He thought about his daughter, about her laugh, about the way she called him Appa, with such love in her voice. He thought about the Dominion children who had lost parents in the last 5 days. He thought about a cycle of revenge that could continue forever. No, he finally said. We are not better than them. Not today. But our children will be. Because after this, no one will ever dare hurt them again. Hana looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I hope you are right. Because if you are wrong, then everything we have done is just murder. Wearing the mask of justice. Far away, in a medical ship behind the human lines, Lieutenant Minho Baek was recovering from his injuries. The ejection from his fighter had broken 3 ribs and cracked his skull. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. He did not feel lucky. He felt empty. Every night, he dreamed of his sister Yoonji. In his dreams, she was still alive. Still drawing her flowers. Still asking him to play with her. Then he would wake up and remember that she was gone, and the emptiness would swallow him again. Colonel Sung-ho Lee came to visit him one evening. The Reaper commander moved silently. As always, appearing in Minho's room like a ghost. You did a brave thing, Sung-ho said. Your broadcast changed everything. Dominion civilians are protesting against their own government because of you. I do not feel brave, Minho replied. I feel like a weapon. Point me at the enemy, fire me, throw me away when I am empty. Sung-ho was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down next to Minho's bed. When I was young, I thought revenge would make me feel better. My village was destroyed by pirates when I was 6 years old. I joined the military to make them pay. I became a Reaper to become strong enough to hurt anyone who hurt me. He paused. I have killed many people since then. I have completed every mission, and I still see my village burning every night when I close my eyes. Minho looked at him. Then why do you keep fighting? Because someone has to. Because if people like me do not do terrible things, then people like you have to. And you deserve better than that. Sung-ho stood up. When this war is over, leave the military. Find a wife, have children. Teach them about your sister. Let her live on through the family you build. That is the only revenge that ever truly heals. He left as silently as he had arrived. Minho lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside his window, stars burned in the endless darkness. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was falling apart. Somewhere out there, humans were winning a war no one thought they could fight. But Minho was thinking about flowers, about a little girl who would never draw them again, about the question that Hana had asked, "Are we any better than them?" He did not have an answer. He was not sure anyone did. One day remained. Tomorrow, everything would end, one way or another. On the sixth day, Overlord Thorn's own soldiers came for him. The end came not with a battle, but with a quiet knock on his door. 3 of his most trusted generals stood outside, their faces tired and empty. They had spent 5 days watching their empire crumble. They had spent 5 days listening to their leader promise victory while everything burned around them. "My lord," the lead general said softly, "it is over. Your soldiers have voted. We are surrendering you to the humans in exchange for mercy." Thorn's face twisted with rage. "Traitors! I am your overlord. I command you to. You command nothing anymore." The general stepped forward. "You started a war we could not win. You murdered millions of innocent people. You brought destruction upon us all. The soldiers outside are not your army anymore. They are survivors who want to go home to their families." Thorn tried to run. He did not get far. They brought him to Captain Yuna Kim's flagship in chains. She looked at the man who had ruled the largest empire in the galaxy. He seemed smaller than she had expected, just an old man with angry eyes and trembling hands. "You will pay for this," Thorn spat at her. "History will remember you as monsters." Yuna's face showed no emotion. "History will remember us as the people you should never have hurt." She sent a message to Admiral Tae Woo. The siege was over. The war was won. Admiral Tae Woo met Overlord Thorn 1 week later, after the formal surrender had been signed. They stood in a small room on a human space station, alone except for guards at the door. Thorn was still in chains. His fine clothes had been replaced with a simple prisoner's uniform. "You have destroyed everything I built," Thorn said bitterly. "Are you proud of yourself?" Tae Woo looked at the man who had ordered his daughter's death. He had imagined this moment many times. He had imagined screaming at Thorn, hurting him, making him suffer the way the people of New Seoul had suffered. But now that the moment was here, he felt nothing but emptiness. "My daughter was 8 years old," he said quietly. "She liked to dance. She called me every week to tell me about her day at school. She always ended our calls by saying she loved me." He paused. "You killed her for a hyperspace lane. You burned 2.3 million people alive so that your ships could travel faster." Thorn said nothing. "You will be tried by a court of New Seoul survivors," Tae Woo continued. "They will decide your punishment. Whatever they choose, it will not bring my daughter back. It will not heal the wounds you have caused, but perhaps it will show the universe that human lives have value, that no one can murder our children and walk away." He turned and walked toward the door. Then he stopped and looked back one last time. "You should have studied us more carefully. We did not avoid war because we feared it. We avoided war because we feared ourselves. Because we knew what we would become if someone pushed us too far." His voice was cold and final. "You pushed, now you see." He left Thorn alone in his chains. The Galactic Concordat convened 1 month later to address what they called the human situation. Representatives from 100 species gathered in the Great Hall. Most of them had spent centuries looking down on humanity. They had called humans weak, primitive, unworthy of respect. Now they sat in terrified silence, waiting to hear what the humans would demand. Ambassador Elena Cross spoke for the new Dominion government. General Marcus Vale had been named the temporary leader, with the understanding that free elections would follow. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was being rebuilt on different principles. "We offer unconditional reparations for the attack on New Seoul," Elena said, her voice shaking slightly. "We offer formal recognition of human sovereignty over all their territories. We offer whatever the humans demand as payment for our crimes." The assembly waited for humanity's response. Captain Yuna Kim stood and walked to the center of the hall. She had been chosen to represent Earth at this moment. She looked around at all the alien faces, watching her faces filled with fear, with respect, with something that might have been shame. "Humanity does not want your fear," she said clearly. "We never wanted to be feared. We wanted to be respected. We wanted to live in peace with our neighbors. We wanted to raise our children without worrying that someone would murder them for profit." She paused, letting her words sink in. What happened over the past 6 days was not something we enjoyed. It was not something we are proud of. We showed the universe what we are capable of, and we hope we never have to show it again. She looked directly at the Dominion representatives. "We want your promise. Not to us, to everyone. Never again. No more burning colonies. No more murdered children. No more empires built on blood and fear." The treaty was signed that day. Humanity officially took their place as a major galactic power, not because they had conquered anyone, but because they had proven that peace was a choice they made, not a weakness they suffered from. 1 year later, Admiral Taewoo Park stood on New Seoul. The ruins had been cleared away. In their place stood a memorial, a wall of black stone stretching for miles, carved with 2.3 million names. Fresh flowers covered the ground in front of it, left by visitors who came from across the galaxy to pay their respects. Taewoo walked slowly along the wall until he found what he was looking for. His daughter's name, carved in stone with her birth date and death date. 8 years. That was all she had been given. 8 years, in a universe that should have given her a lifetime. He reached out and traced the characters of her name with his fingers. "It is done, Su-min," he whispered. "The people who hurt you have been punished. The galaxy is different now. Safer. Better." Tears ran down his face. "I hope you would be proud of your father. I hope you would forgive me for not protecting you." He stood there for a long time, alone with his grief. Across the galaxy, things were changing. Dr. Hana Cho had sealed Protocol Chaos once more, locking away the terrible weapons she had created. She retired from her position and spent her remaining years teaching children about the stars. She never spoke about the war again. Lieutenant Minho Baek left the military, just as Colonel Sung-Ho Lee had suggested. He met a woman named Jun who made him smile for the first time since New Seoul. Together, they had a daughter. They named her Yoonji, after the sister Minho had lost. Every night, before bed, he told little Unji stories about her aunt who liked to draw flowers. Colonel Sung-Ho Lee officially disbanded the Reapers. The soldiers who had served in that terrible unit returned to the shadows from which they came, praying they would never be needed again. Some found peace, some did not, but all of them carried the weight of what they had done, knowing it had been necessary, knowing it had been wrong. Captain Yuna Kim became an admiral herself, leading humanity's new peace fleet. Her ships patrolled the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians. Under her watch, 3 more wars were prevented before they could begin. She never forgot what she had seen during the 6 days. She made sure no one else would have to see it again. And across the galaxy, among alien species who had once laughed at humanity, a new saying spread. Parents told it to their children. Teachers taught it in schools. It became part of galactic wisdom, a warning that would echo through the centuries. Let the humans sleep, for when they wake, they shake the stars. Humanity had shown what they could become when pushed too far. Now, they returned to being what they had always wanted to be. A peaceful people. Building a better future, hoping that the darkness they had unleashed would never be needed again. But they kept the weapons, they kept the knowledge, they kept the memory, because the universe had taught them a lesson, too. Peace was precious. Peace was worth protecting, and sometimes, to protect peace, you had to show everyone what would happen if they tried to take it away. Admiral Taewoo visited his daughter's grave one last time before retiring. He left her burned doll at the base of the memorial wall, next to the flowers that never stopped coming. "Rest now, Su-min," he said softly. "The war is over. Your father is going home." He turned and walked away, toward a future he had bought with blood and fire and sorrow. A future where his grandchildren would grow up without fear. A future where peace was not weakness, but strength. A future his daughter would never see, but had made possible. The stars continued to burn. The universe continued to turn. And humanity continued to hope that the 6 days of vengeance would be the last days of vengeance they would ever need. Some hoped in vain, others hoped in truth, but all of them remembered.